You know, because of finances, there are a lot of games I really want to review, but I really just can't, mostly because of other games coming out at the time, or I just don't have enough money for them. Unfortunately, some of these games are also games that you guys request for me to review for you, and I don't end up getting around to them. Well, I think I found a solution in the form of GameFly, the rental service. I think it's going to be able to save me a lot of money and allow me to review a lot more fully priced games from now on. But let's get right to it. A game that's been heavily requested for review for a very long time. Here is my review of Warriors Orochi 4 for the Nintendo Switch. After the events of the third game of the series, all of the heroes return to their respective worlds and lose all memory of the previous games of the series and their adventures. Zeus, among the other gods of Olympus, watched all of these battles and wanted to see them fight again, so he creates a new world that all of these Japanese and Chinese heroes fall into again, resulting in a new war of the heroes fighting against the gods to find out what they want and how to get back home. I like this story because of all the different cultures that clash in it. Of course, Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors already have clashing cultures from China and Japan, but now you've got characters and deities appearing from Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and Norse mythology, so it's like a huge culture crossover game. And despite the huge roster, every one of the characters gets their own character arc, be it in the main story or in their own events. When it comes to gameplay, Orochi 4 is a 3D Musou game where you're wandering around 3D areas, fighting off hordes of enemies, as well as boss-like officer characters. Just like all of the other Warriors games, but with taking into account Orochi's party-based system instead of just going through with a single character. Now, the biggest draw of the Orochi series has always been the fact that it's been a big crossover between Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors, and this has the biggest roster yet at over 170 different playable characters. So no matter who your favorite character is from either franchise, they're probably in here somewhere. When it comes to game mode, you've got story mode that lets you go through the campaign and unlock all of your characters, online multiplayer, which is a first for the Orochi series, as well as the battle arena if you want to go through and do some missions without necessarily being tied to story stuff. Of course, the story campaign is where most of the game content is. You've got 5 chapters and well over 50 different missions that you can go through, each involved with unlocking new content in the form of weapons and playable characters. And that's really where the depth is in this game, not necessarily in the combat, but in all of the characters and all of the customization that you can do with them. Characters level up like in an RPG, and as they level up, they can unlock new skills that let them do bigger combos, change their stats, and you're constantly getting new weapons for all those characters that you actually use in battle, allowing you to add a lot of different unique effects to those weapons, like absorbing HP from enemies as you attack, or setting enemies on fire or freezing them to make fighting those bosses a little bit easier. I really like the weapon customization system because of the sheer number of different effects that you can apply to weapons and characters. What I don't like is how the leveling system works. Every character is recruited into your party at level 1, even the ones that are recruited very late into the game. So if you get one of those late game characters from a level 40 mission and you want to use them right away, you have to actually grind several missions to grind for all the experience you need to catch that character up with the rest. And it takes a lot because you don't really get that much experience per mission to freely give to other characters who weren't involved in that mission. Because of this, instead of exploring the character like you're supposed to in a crossover game, I just found a character or two that I really liked the moveset for, and I played them for pretty much the entire game. I didn't want to have to spend an hour or two just grinding mission after mission after mission just so my new character that I was interested in would be competent enough to do the mission. Now, of course, combat has improved as well. In all the debates I've seen between Orochi 3 Ultimate and Orochi 4, people will always say that Orochi 3 Ultimate has more content and missions, but Orochi 4 has much better gameplay. The biggest new system we have here is magic. Every character has a certain sort of magic tied to them. This recharges over time and can be used for different kinds of big AoE attacks for knocking out big crowds. It can also be easily comboed into characters' actual attack combos, making all of the combinations that you can do a little bit more in depth. Of course, not everything here is new. You still have the basic Musou formula where you're wandering around 3D areas filled with hundreds upon hundreds of enemies that you can just plow through with attack combinations whether you're on foot or on horseback. But the magic system does make the horse system a little bit more convenient because instead of calling a horse nearby and having to stop and mount them, you can use magic to summon and you're already mounted and on the move. And the final convenience thing that magic brings in is Unity Magic, where your entire party of 7 characters pull in for a super flashy and super cinematic ultimate attack. But despite all of these improvements and conveniences, it doesn't keep the game from feeling repetitive. You've got a lot of different objectives that you can do, like escort missions or conquest missions or defense missions, but every objective is basically this: Go to the objective area and kill all the boss-like officers there. You don't need to take over bases, you don't need to really escort NPCs, you just have to make sure all the officers around them are dead. And it really makes the game feel repetitive because you've got all of these different described objectives, but they're all really the same objective. And now let's go into difficulty, which has one thing that I really don't like about this game. This is a party-based game where you're not playing as just one character, you can freely swap between 3 different characters. But you get a game over when any one of those characters reaches 0 HP. So if you get caught in a stun lock, you don't automatically swap to another character in your party that's still alive, you just get a game over and have to retry from the last checkpoint or the start of the mission. Now I can understand this if the characters you're playing as are integral to that story mission, but a lot of times they're not. Now when all this comes together in terms of content, you do have a lot of stuff you can do here. Across all of the main story and all the stuff that I did in customization, I beat the game in around 19 or 20 hours. This was between the easy and normal difficulties, so if you go on normal or higher, you're probably going to spend at least 20 hours, if not more. Now let's get into presentation, which is absolutely gorgeous. The character models have no jagged edges, they've got a ton of detail, and honestly, when I first started playing this game and I saw the character models up close, I could have been convinced that this was the PS4 version. Now the draw distance does suffer a little bit because there's some tearing in some really far off landmarks, but overall it is one of the prettiest handheld Warriors games I've ever seen. Now when we get into performance, some blemishes do start to show themselves. When you've got it in docked mode, it stays pretty stable for the most part, but some stages and some animations do make the frame rate a little choppy. Unfortunately, when you put the Switch in handheld mode, a lot of the game becomes choppy. It's not unplayable, but it's very similar to how some of the old Vita Warriors games used to play. Now the silver lining of this is the graphics don't really go down very much when you go into handheld mode. It still looks gorgeous when you've got it on the go. It's just choppy. Now let's go into battery life. I wasn't expecting much here and it's all pretty expected. Warriors Orochi 4 has a battery range of 2 hours and 22 minutes on high settings up to 2 hours and 41 minutes on low settings. Now, in conclusion, Warriors Orochi 4 brings a beautiful Musou experience with a huge roster to handheld fans. Now the downside, the new systems don't keep it from feeling like a repetitive game, and the frame rate does get pretty choppy in handheld mode. But if you can look past this choppiness or play in docked mode, the huge roster and beautiful visuals will please any fan of the Warriors games. Reviews to Go rates Warriors Orochi 4 for the Nintendo Switch a 7 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.